Elena Morales, expecting mother, thought her millionaire father's inheritance was a cruel joke. But as she explored his old watch collection, she discovered hidden secrets that would heal her family and redefine her future. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. Elena's coffee has gone cold again. She cradles the mug anyway, its familiar warmth fading like the memories she's trying to hold on to. Morning light filters through dusty blinds, casting thin stripes across her small kitchen table where a photograph demands her attention. In it, her father Manuel beams with pride, his arm around her shoulders at her high school graduation. His watch chain glints in the flash of the camera. Always that watch, marking time even in frozen moments. The sounds of rush hour drift up from the street below, a chaotic symphony that makes the silence in her apartment feel heavier. Elena traces her father's face in the photograph with trembling fingers. 6 months gone, and some mornings she still reaches for her phone to call him, to share the news she never got to tell him. Her other hand drifts to her slightly rounded belly, a gesture that's become unconscious these past few months. The morning sickness has finally passed, but the guilt lingers. She should have told him sooner, should have made that final drive to see him when Rosa called to say he wasn't doing well. Should have, should have, should have. The words beat in time with the traffic below. Elena pulls a fresh sheet of paper from the stack beside her laptop. Her graphic design work can wait. This feels more urgent somehow. "Dear little one," she writes, then stops. The words blur as tears threaten. How can she explain to her child about the grandfather they'll never meet? About the man who taught her that family meant showing up, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The paper crumples in her fist before she realizes she's crushing it. Another failed attempt joins the growing pile in her recycling bin. She can't find the right words, can't capture the essence of Manuel Morales in ink and paper, can't explain how he would have loved this baby, even though... Mija, his voice echoes in her memory, clear as yesterday. They were walking through Washington Park, fallen leaves crunching beneath their feet. Legacy isn't about money or things. It's about the stories we tell, the love we pass down. She had nodded, distracted by work deadlines and her recent divorce, not realizing how precious these moments would become. Her apartment feels suddenly claustrophobic. Unwashed dishes crowd the sink, a testament to her failing energy. Half-unpacked moving boxes line the walls. She'd signed the lease 2 months ago, but can't seem to finish settling in. The unfinished baby quilt draped over her sewing machine catches her eye, its bright squares a sharp contrast to the gray morning. She'd started it the day she found out she was pregnant, imagining Manuel's delight at becoming a grandfather. The old pocket watch sits on her coffee table, its gold case dulled with age. One of the few items she'd inherited, though inherited feels like too formal a word for the haphazard way Manuel's possessions had been divided. The watch hasn't ticked in years, but she can't bring herself to have it repaired. Its stillness feels appropriate somehow, like time itself stopped the day he died. Elena pushes back from the table, her chair scraping against worn linoleum. She needs to get ready. The meeting at the lawyer's office looms ahead, and with it, the prospect of seeing Isabel. Her sister's voice on the phone had been clipped, businesslike. 9 o'clock sharp, she'd said. Don't be late, as if Elena were still the irresponsible older sister who needed managing. The bathroom mirror shows dark circles under her eyes, new lines around her mouth that makeup can't quite hide. Elena applies concealer anyway, armor against Isabel's scrutiny. Her black dress, the one she'd worn to the funeral, fits a bit more snugly now. She smooths the fabric over her small bump, wondering if anyone will notice, if anyone will care. The drive downtown passes in a blur of morning traffic and mounting anxiety. Parker, Rhodes & Associates occupies the 10th floor of a glass and steel building that makes Elena feel small and underdressed before she even steps inside. The elevator ride gives her time to rehearse her expressions, calm, composed, unbothered by whatever barbs Isabel might throw. The conference room already holds 3 people when Elena arrives, 5 minutes early, despite Isabel's warnings. Their mother, Rosa, sits quietly in a corner, her silver hair elegant against her navy blazer. She offers Elena a small smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. The lawyer, Mr. Parker, shuffles papers with practiced importance, and Isabel stands at the window, tapping manicured nails against her phone screen. Her designer outfit probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe. She turns at Elena's entrance, arching one perfect eyebrow. "You made it," she says, as if Elena's punctuality is a personal disappointment. "Traffic was light," Elena replies, taking a seat beside Rosa. Her mother's hand finds hers under the table, a quick squeeze of solidarity. Mr. Parker clears his throat. "Now that we're all here, let's begin." He adjusts his reading glasses with theatrical precision. Regarding the last will and testament of Manuel James Morales. Elena focuses on breathing steadily as the lawyer drones through legal terminology. Her father's assets, modest but carefully managed. His debts, thankfully few. And then, to my younger daughter, Isabel Maria Morales, I leave the sum of $250,000 to be paid from my life insurance policy. Isabel's sharp intake of breath breaks the room's silence. A smile plays at the corners of her mouth as she makes a note on her phone. Elena's stomach clenches, but she keeps her expression neutral. To my elder daughter, Elena Cristina Morales, Mr. Parker continues, I leave my storage shed at 1542 Oak Street, including all contents therein. The words hang in the air like smoke. Elena blinks, certain she's misheard. The storage shed? That dilapidated building where Manuel kept his tools and old projects? Isabel's laugh, sharp and bright, cuts through Elena's confusion. "Oh, that's perfect," she says, not bothering to hide her smirk. "Elena always did love Daddy's junk collection." "Isabel?" Rosa warns quietly, but her daughter waves away the reproach. "No, really, it's fitting. Elena gets the shed full of broken things, and I get something actually valuable. Daddy always did know us best." Elena's cheeks burn. She stares at her hands, folded tightly in her lap, as Mr. Parker continues reading. The rest of the will fades into background noise. She's aware of Isabel texting rapidly, probably sharing the news with her countless friends, of Rosa's concerned glances, of her own heartbeat, too loud in her ears. The meeting ends with signatures and handshakes. Isabel sweeps out first, already talking into her phone about investment options. Elena lingers, gathering her purse with clumsy fingers. "Mia," Rosa says softly, touching her arm. "Your father." "It's fine, Mama." Elena forces a smile. "Really? I should go, I have work." But Rosa holds on, her grip surprisingly strong. "Manuel always had his reasons. That shed, he spent so many hours there, especially after your grandmother died. He said it helped him think." "Think about what?" "That's something you'll have to discover for yourself." Rosa's eyes, so like Manuel's, hold a hint of mystery. "Just don't dismiss it too quickly, mi amor. Sometimes the most valuable things don't look valuable at all." Elena nods, not trusting her voice. She hurries from the building, but not quickly enough to miss Isabel's voice carrying across the parking lot. "No, you should have seen her face." Her sister laughs into her phone. "A worthless shed full of worthless junk. Meanwhile, I can finally start that investment portfolio." The words follow Elena to her car, settling like weights in her chest. She sits behind the wheel, key in the ignition, but doesn't start the engine. Through the windshield, she watches Isabel climb into her luxury SUV, still chattering away. Their mother emerges last, pausing on the steps to watch both her daughters leave in opposite directions. A memory surfaces. Manuel in his shed, bent over his workbench, showing Elena how to repair an old radio. "Sometimes," he'd said, "the most precious things are the ones others throw away." Elena starts her car, decision crystallizing. She'll visit the shed today. Not because she expects to find anything valuable, Isabel's probably right about that, but because she needs to understand. Needs to know why Manuel would leave her this particular legacy. The drive to Oak Street takes longer than she remembers. The neighborhood has changed, small houses giving way to newer developments, but the shed still stands on its small lot, weather-beaten and resolute. Elena parks across the street, studying the familiar shape through her windshield. Weeds push through cracks in the concrete path. Rust stains the padlock securing the door. But the building itself seems solid enough, its raw wood weathered to a soft gray. Manuel had built it himself 30 years ago, Elena remembers. She'd helped hand him nails, feeling important in her two large work gloves. Her key, the one she'd carried for years but rarely used, fits smoothly in the lock. The door protests with a screech of hinges, releasing a wave of dust and memories. Elena stands in the doorway, letting her eyes adjust to the dimness. The space feels smaller than she remembers, crowded with shadows and forgotten things. Shelves line the walls, sagging under the weight of boxes and old equipment. Manuel's workbench dominates one corner, its surface cluttered with tools and half-finished projects. A broken clock, a radio in pieces. Each item tells a story she only half remembers. Elena moves carefully through the narrow paths between stacks of boxes, many bare labels in Manuel's neat handwriting. Christmas 1992, Rosa's mother's china, photo albums 1980 to 1985. Her throat tightens at the sight of his familiar script. Elena? Isabel's voice, sharp with surprise, makes her jump. Her sister stands in the doorway, silhouetted against the morning light. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Elena straightens, brushing dust from her dress. This is my shed now, remember? Isabel steps inside, wrinkling her nose at the musty air. I left some papers in my car. Thought I'd stop by, see what Daddy Dearest left you. Her laugh doesn't quite hide her curiosity. Found anything valuable yet? I just got here. Well, don't get your hopes up. Isabel picks up a rusty wrench, examining it with exaggerated interest. Daddy's idea of treasure wasn't exactly profitable. Elena watches her sister move through the shed, touching things at random. There's something off about her behavior, a nervousness beneath the casual disdain. Why are you really here, Isabel? Can't I check on my big sister? Isabel sets down the wrench with careful precision, making sure you're not too disappointed about the inheritance. Right, because you've always been so concerned about my feelings. Isabel's phone chimes. She glances at it, and something flickers across her face. Worry? Fear? But her voice stays light. Well, this has been fun, but I have actual business to attend to. Unlike some people, I have plans for my inheritance. She turns to leave, then pauses. Oh, and Elena, if you do find anything worth selling, let me know. I might be interested in taking it off your hands. The offer hangs in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Elena says nothing, watching her sisters retreating back. The door closes with a final sounding click. Alone again, Elena sinks onto an old stool, her head spinning with questions. Isabel's behavior, Rosa's cryptic words, Manuel's choice to leave her this place. None of it quite adds up. She looks around with new eyes, wondering what she's missing. A shaft of sunlight breaks through a high window, illuminating motes of dust and catching on something in the corner. Elena moves closer, pushing aside a stack of old magazines. There, half hidden behind a sheet of plywood, she sees it, the edge of a safe, its steel face dulled by years of dust. Her heart beats faster as she clears away the debris. The safe isn't large, but it's solid and well-made. A combination lock guards its contents, the dial showing signs of frequent use. Elena runs her fingers over the cool metal, remembering how Manuel would sometimes disappear into the shed for hours, emerging with a quiet satisfaction she never quite understood. Oh, Papa, she whispers, what were you protecting? The safe offers no answers, but its presence changes everything. Elena sits back on her heels, mind racing. She could call a locksmith, have it opened professionally, but something stops her. Intuition, maybe, or the memory of Rosa's knowing look. No, she decides. Whatever secrets the safe holds, she needs to uncover them properly. Her father was a methodical man. He would have left clues for her to follow. She just has to be patient enough to find them. Outside, traffic hums past the shed's thin walls. The world moves on, unaware of the mystery unfolding in this dusty corner. Elena stands, brushing off her dress. She has work waiting at home, deadlines to meet. But as she leaves, locking the door behind her, she knows she'll be back tomorrow and the next day. However long it takes to understand what Manuel wanted her to find. The safe's existence burns in her mind like a beacon as she drives home. Whatever it contains, whether treasure or trinkets, feels like a message from Manuel. One last lesson from a father who always taught through example rather than words. Elena parks outside her apartment building but doesn't get out immediately. She rests her hands on her belly, feeling the slight swell that represents her own legacy in the making. Your grandfather was a complicated man, she tells her unborn child, but I think he might have left us something more valuable than money. From somewhere behind her, Isabel's voice carries across the parking lot. Elena turns to see her sister pacing near her SUV, phone pressed to her ear. Are you kidding me? This is absolutely worthless junk, Isabel says, voice sharp with frustration. Elena got stuck with some rotting shed while I... She catches sight of Elena and turns away, lowering her voice. Listen, I'll call you back. Just make sure those investment papers are ready by tomorrow. Elena's hands tighten on the steering wheel. She forces herself to breathe deeply, counting to 10 like her therapist taught her. But Isabel's words echo in her head, mixing with the memory of their father's quiet dignity. A knock on her window startles her. Rosa stands there, holding a cardboard box, concern etched on her face. Elena wipes her eyes quickly and gets out of the car. I thought you might want to see these, Rosa says, setting the box on the hood. Inside, dozens of photographs spill together in a chaos of memories. She pulls one out carefully, Manuel standing proudly in front of the newly built shed, his tools still scattered around his feet. He built it himself, Rosa says softly. Every nail, every board, said he needed a place to think, to work with his hands. She meets Elena's eyes. There's more in that shed than just old tools. Your father was a man who believed in leaving messages for those patient enough to find them. Elena stares at the photograph, at her father's familiar smile. Isabel doesn't see it that way. Isabel sees what she wants to see. Rosa's voice carries a hint of steel beneath its gentleness. Just like she always has, but you have your father's eyes, his way of looking beneath the surface. What are you trying to tell me, Mama? Rosa just smiles, pressing the photograph into Elena's hands. Go back to the shed, look carefully. Your father didn't do anything without a reason. The next morning finds Elena standing once again before the shed's weathered door. She's dressed for serious work this time. Old jeans, comfortable shoes, her hair tied back in a practical braid. The key turns smoothly in the lock, as if the door has been waiting for her return. Sunlight streams through dust-filmed windows, painting patterns on the cluttered floor. Elena moves with purpose now, examining each shelf, each box, each forgotten tool. She creates careful piles, things to keep, things to donate, things that might be valuable. But her mind keeps returning to the safe, its presence like a magnet drawing her attention. The crack of gravel outside makes her freeze. Through a grimy window, she sees Isabel's SUV pull up. Her sister sits behind the wheel for a long moment, a phone pressed to her ear, face tight with anxiety. I know I'm late on the payment. Isabel's voice drifts faintly through the walls. Just give me another week. The inheritance money is coming, I swear. She pauses, listening. No, you don't understand. I can't. There has to be something else in that shed, something valuable. My father wouldn't just... Elena steps back from the window, heart pounding. The pieces start falling into place. Isabel's desperate interest, her quick dismissal of the shed masking a deeper concern. Her sister is in trouble, the kind that $250,000 might not be enough to fix. Moving quietly, Elena returns to the safe. Its solid presence feels different now, weighted with new understanding. If Isabel suspects what it contains. She runs her fingers along the dial, remembering how her father would spend hours in here, emerging with that quiet satisfaction she never understood. What secrets did he keep? What messages did he leave? And why did he trust them to her instead of Isabel? The safe's combination lock gleams dully in a shaft of sunlight. Elena traces the numbers, thinking of her father's methodical nature, his love of puzzles and hidden meanings. He would have left her clues, not obvious ones, but signs that only she would recognize. She begins to search more systematically, paying attention to the details her father always said mattered most. Each box offers possibilities. Each shelf might hold a clue. Time slips away as she works, the outside world fading into irrelevance. The sun is setting when Rosa arrives, carrying a thermos of coffee and what looks like her old recipe box. She takes in Elena's dust-covered appearance with knowing eyes. I thought you might need help with the safe, she says, setting down her burdens. Your father spent so much time with that thing, especially near the end. Elena straightens from where she's been examining a shelf of old textbooks. You knew about it? Mija, I was married to that man for 40 years. Of course I knew. Rosa opens the recipe box, pulling out what looks like a small key. But knowing about something isn't the same as understanding it. That was always Manuel's gift, understanding the heart of things. Together, they approach the safe. The key fits a small panel beneath the combination dial. revealing a set of numbered markers Elena hadn't noticed before. Her breath catches as she recognizes the pattern, the same sequence Manuel used to tap out on the dinner table when he was deep in thought. "He wanted you to find this," Rosa says softly, "when you were ready." With trembling fingers, Elena turns the dial, left to her birth year, right to the day Manuel and Rosa met. Left again to the number of steps up to her childhood bedroom. The lock clicks open with a sound like destiny. Inside, nestled in velvet-lined boxes, lies a collection of antique watches. Each one gleams with careful preservation, their faces reflecting the last rays of sunlight, and beneath them, a stack of envelopes addressed in Manuel's precise handwriting. "To my daughter Elena, who always understood that time is the most precious inheritance." Tears blur Elena's vision as she lifts out the first envelope. Inside, her father's words wait like a bridge across time, ready to share one final lesson about legacy, love, and the true meaning of inheritance. Elena spreads the watches across her kitchen table like fallen leaves, each one catching the morning light differently. Some gleam with polished brass, others show the subtle patina of age. Her hands hover over them, almost afraid to touch. These aren't just timepieces. They're pieces of her father, carefully preserved messages waiting to be understood. She selects one of Manuel's notes at random, his precise handwriting stark against cream paper. The envelope feels delicate in her hands, as if it might crumble under the weight of her anticipation. "My dearest Elena, time has always fascinated me. Not just its measurement, but its meaning. The way it flows like water through our fingers, impossible to hold, yet leaving its mark on everything it touches. You understood this, even as a child. While Isabel rushed through life, always reaching for the next moment, you knew how to pause, how to notice. This Hamilton pocket watch belonged to your great-grandfather. He carried it across an ocean, believing in a future he couldn't see. The crystal is scratched, the case dented, but it still keeps perfect time. Like Yumihika, it perseveres. Remember, family connections are like watch mechanisms. They require maintenance, attention, patience. Even when they seem broken beyond repair, there's always hope for restoration in careful hands." "Papa," Elena's throat tightens. She traces the scratched crystal of the Hamilton, feeling its steady tick against her fingertips. The watch feels heavier now, weighted with history and expectation. Outside her apartment window, a car horn blares, jarring her back to the present moment, to decisions that need making. Isabel would want to sell them. The thought comes unbidden, accompanied by a sharp twist in her gut. Her sister has always valued immediate gain over sentimental worth. Even at the will reading, her first question had been about market values, investment potential. The memory of Isabel's calculating expression makes Elena's hands curl protectively around the watch. A gentle kick from her unborn child draws her attention downward. Her belly has grown enough that her favorite sweater pulls tight across it now. "Your grandfather was trying to tell us something," she murmurs, rubbing the spot where the baby moved. "I just need to figure out what." The drive to Rosa's house takes longer than usual, morning traffic clogging the arterial streets. Elena cradles one of the watches in her purse, a delicate Longines with mother-of-pearl dial that seems to capture every hint of light. She's read its accompanying note 3 times already, each reading revealing new layers of meaning in her father's carefully chosen words. Rosa answers the door before Elena can knock, as if she's been waiting. Maybe she has been. Her mother has always had an uncanny sense for when her children need her. Mija. Rosa's embrace smells of cinnamon and coffee. Come in, you look tired." "I haven't been sleeping well." Elena follows her mother into the familiar kitchen where sunlight streams through gauzy curtains Manuel had hung decades ago. Everything here feels preserved in amber. The worn formica table, the collection of mixed-match mugs, the gentle tick of the wall clock that's marked time through countless family meals. Rosa busies herself with coffee preparation, her movements precise and practiced. "You found something in the shed." It's not a question. Elena places the Longines on the table between them. "Did you know about the watches, Mama?" "I knew he collected them." Rosa sets 2 steaming mugs down, easing herself into a chair. "But Manuel was private about some things. He said everyone needs a space that's just their own." Her eyes drift to the watch. "Ah, I remember this one. He bought it at that little shop in Santa Fe the summer before Isabel started college. There are others, many others, and notes. Papa left notes with each one. Elena pulls out the letter, smoothing its creases before sliding it across to her mother. I don't know what to do, Mama. These watches, they're worth something. Maybe a lot, but the way Papa wrote about them. Rosa reads silently, her expression softening. When she looks up, her eyes shine with unshed tears. Your father believed in leaving legacies that matter, not just things, but stories, wisdom. She touches the watch's crystal with gentle fingers. These pieces, they're more than just metal and glass. They're his way of reaching through time to guide you. And Isabel, what do I tell her? Rosa's expression grows careful. Your sister. She sees the world differently than you do. Misha! Always has. These watches, they need someone who understands their true value. But that's just it. Elena wraps her hands around her coffee mug, seeking its warmth. What is their true value? Are they meant to be preserved, sold, shared? Every time I think I understand what Papa wanted, I find another note that makes me question everything. Perhaps that's exactly what he intended. Rosa reaches across the table to squeeze Elena's hand. Your father was teaching until the end, making us think, making us choose. The value isn't in the watches themselves, but in what we learn from them. Elena sits back, one hand drifting to her belly, a gesture that's become automatic these past months. I wish he was here, to meet his grandchild, to tell me if I'm doing the right thing. He is here, mi amor. Rosa taps the watch gently. In every tick, in every word he left behind. You just need to listen carefully. That evening, Elena loses herself in more of Manuel's notes. Each one reveals another facet of her father, his hopes, his regrets, his quiet pride in both his daughters despite their differences. One letter in particular catches at her heart. Elena, this Omega Seamaster tells an interesting story. I found it in pieces at a flea market, discarded because someone decided it wasn't worth fixing. But beneath the tarnish and damage, I saw its potential. Like you, it needed someone to believe in its worth. I spent months restoring it, learning its peculiarities, understanding its needs. When it finally began keeping time again, the satisfaction was sweeter for the struggle. Remember this when things seem broken beyond repair. Patience and persistence can restore what others might abandon. You have always been my steady one, Mihija, the one who looks beneath surface damage to find hidden value. Trust that instinct. Con amor, papajas, the words blur as tears threaten. Elena sets the letter aside carefully, aware of its fragility. Outside her apartment window, the city settles into evening rhythms, traffic thinning, lights winking on in neighboring buildings. She should be working on her latest design project, but the watches command her attention like beacons. Her phone buzzes, Isabel's name on the screen. Elena stares at it until the call goes to voicemail, guilt and relief warring in her chest. She's not ready for that conversation. Not yet. Not until she understands exactly what Manuel was trying to tell them both. The watches tick in quiet harmony, counting out moments of indecision. Elena gathers them carefully, returning each to its velvet-lined box. Tomorrow, she'll need to make decisions, take actions. But for now, she lets herself sink into the rhythm of their synchronized heartbeats, imagining her father bent over his workbench, patiently bringing each one back to life. In the growing darkness, she whispers a promise to both her father and her unborn child. I'll find a way to preserve what matters most. The appraiser's shop sits wedged between a coffee house and a vintage clothing store, its windows displaying an eclectic mix of antiques. A bell chimes softly as Elena pushes open the heavy door, the familiar scent of old wood and leather wrapping around her like a welcome. Javier Delgado looks exactly as she remembers from childhood visits with Manuel. Salt and pepper hair swept back from a lined face, wire-rimmed glasses perched perpetually on the end of his nose. He glances up from his workbench, recognition lighting his features. Elena Morales. He sets aside the loop he's been using. I was so sorry to hear about Manuel. Your father was a good man. Thank you. Elena sets her leather satchel carefully on the counter between them. I need your help with something, Javier. Something that belonged to Papa. Understanding softens his expression. Ah, you found them then. The revelation shouldn't surprise her, but it does. You knew about the watches? Claro que sí. Who do you think helped him track down some of the rarer pieces? Javier's eyes crinkle with remembered amusement. Manuel was particular about his collection. Each piece had to speak to him somehow. Tell a story worth preserving. Elena begins removing the watch boxes from her satchel, laying them out with careful precision. I need to know their value, their real value, not just what they might fetch at auction. Javier picks up the Hamilton pocket watch, cradling it with practiced hands. Oh, my old friend, you clever, clever man. What do you mean? But Javier is lost in examination, turning the watch to catch the light. His fingers trace its contours with the reverence of a priest handling sacred objects. The craftsmanship here, you don't see this quality anymore, and the provenance. Your father documented everything, I assume? His notes about each piece? Elena nods, throat tight. Good. That adds significantly to their value, both historical and monetary. He sets the Hamilton aside, reaching for the Omega. Now this is extraordinary. The restoration work alone, your father spent months on this one. I remember him bringing it in, just a box of parts and potential. How much, Javier? The question comes out sharper than she intends. He looks at her over his glasses, expression serious. For the collection as a whole, conservatively, several $100,000, more if marketed to the right buyers. He holds up a hand as Elena sways slightly. But that's not the whole story, is it? Manuel didn't collect these as investments. Each one meant something to him. Each one has a purpose beyond its price tag. Elena sinks onto the wooden stool he offers, mind spinning with zeros. I don't know what to do with them. Yes, you do. Javier's voice is gentle but firm. Your father trusted you with them for a reason. The question isn't what they're worth in dollars, what they're worth to your family's legacy. The bell over the door chimes again. Elena turns to see Isabel frozen in the doorway, designer purse clutched tight against her side. Their eyes meet in the antique-filled silence. Well, Isabel says, voice brittle as thin ice. This is interesting. Elena's heart stutters. Isabel, what are you? I followed you. Isabel steps inside, letting the door swing shut behind her. Her heels click against the hardwood floor like accusations. You've been so secretive lately, disappearing into that shed for hours. And now, her gaze fixes on the watches spread across Javier's counter. Now I see why. It's not what you think. No? Isabel's laugh holds no humor. It looks like my sister found something valuable in Daddy's junk collection and decided to keep it all to herself. How am I doing so far? Javier clears his throat. Ladies, perhaps we should stay out of this. Isabel's tone could freeze Mercury. This is family business. She moves closer, eyes locked on the watches. So what are they worth? Enough to make up for that pathetic inheritance you got stuck with. Elena begins gathering the watches, hands trembling slightly. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Isabel's voice cracks suddenly, revealing something raw beneath the anger. Explain why you get to hide away Daddy's treasures while I'm drowning in debt, barely keeping my head above water. Explain how that's fair. The confession hangs in the air between them, heavy with implications. Elena stares at her sister, really seeing her for the first time in months. The designer clothes can't quite hide how thin Isabel has become. Dark circles lurk beneath carefully applied concealer. Her hands, clutching her purse like a lifeline, tremble slightly. Isabel? Elena starts, but her sister is already backing away. Save it. Isabel's mask slips back into place, smooth and hard as porcelain. Just remember, whatever you're planning to do with those watches, they're part of Daddy's estate, and I have rights. The bell chimes again as Isabel leaves, the sound sharp as breaking glass. Elena sinks back onto the stool, watches clutched protectively against her chest. Javier sighs heavily. Well, that complicates things. Outside, traffic continues its steady flow, oblivious to the drama unfolding behind the shop's dusty windows. Elena can see Isabel's silhouette retreating down the sidewalk, spine rigid with wounded pride. What am I supposed to do now? She whispers, more to herself than to Javier. But he answers anyway, voice gentle with understanding. What Manuel would have done. Look beneath the surface. Find the story that needs telling. Elena nods slowly, her father's words echoing in her memory. Family connections are like watch mechanisms. They require maintenance, attention, patience. Even when they seem broken beyond repair, there's always hope for restoration in careful hands. She just has to figure out how to be those careful hands. Back in her apartment, Elena sits cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by her father's notes. She's read each one multiple times now, searching for guidance, for some hint of what Manuel would want her to do. The watches tick softly from their boxes, a chorus of heartbeats marking time's relentless march. Isabel's revelation about her financial troubles changes everything. And nothing. The money from selling the watches could help her sister. Yes. But Elena can't shake the feeling that there's more to Manuel's legacy than monetary value. Each note speaks of connection, of preservation, of looking beyond surface worth to find deeper meaning. Her phone buzzes again. Rosa? Mia? Are you all right? Isabel just called me, very upset. Elena closes her eyes, leaning back against her headboard. She followed me to Javier's shop, Mama. She saw the watches. Ay Dios. Rosa's sigh carries years of maternal worry. And now she knows they're valuable. She told me she's in debt. Serious debt from the sound of it. She thinks I'm being selfish, keeping them from her. Are you? The question catches Elena off guard. What? Are you being selfish, mi amor? It's okay if you are. Sometimes we need to protect things until we understand their true purpose. Elena's hand drifts to her belly, finding comfort in the subtle movements of her child. I don't know anymore, Mama, every time I think I know what Papa wanted. Trust your instincts, Rosa interrupts gently. Manuel did. After hanging up, Elena returns to the notes, but her attention keeps drifting to the window. Night has fallen, city lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Somewhere out there, Isabel is probably already making plans, calculating values, seeing only the potential profit in their father's carefully curated collection. A swift kick from the baby makes Elena smile despite everything. You're restless tonight, little one, just like your Aunt Isabel, always in motion, always reaching for the next thing. The smile fades as memories surface. Isabel as a child, perpetually rushing ahead while Elena hung back, observing. Isabel in college, charging into business ventures that usually ended in disaster. Isabel at the will reading, barely concealing her triumph at receiving the larger share. But now Elena sees what she missed before. Her sister's desperate need to prove herself, to measure up to some impossible standard. The watches tick in quiet judgment, reminding her of time's passage, of opportunities lost and found. She picks up the Omega Seamaster, the broken one Manuel had restored with such patience. Its steady rhythm feels like a message from her father. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones others would discard. Elena reaches for her phone, then stops. No, this isn't a conversation for text messages or late-night calls. Whatever happens next needs to happen face-to-face, with all cards on the table. She owes that much to Manuel's memory. The watches keep their vigil as she finally drifts off to sleep, their synchronized ticking a lullaby of possibility. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own choices. But for now, Elena lets herself be soothed by their rhythm, dreaming of her father's hands carefully winding each one, setting them in motion with purpose and love. In her dreams, the watches speak in Manuel's voice, each tick a word of wisdom she can't quite grasp. She wakes to morning light and a decision forming like frost on glass. Isabel's desperation manifests in unexpected ways over the next few days. Elena notices her sister's car parked on the street outside the storage shed more than once. The padlock shows subtle signs of tampering. Small things disappear from the workspace, a hammer here, a screwdriver there, as if Isabel is searching for hidden compartments or secret caches. The surveillance makes Elena increasingly cautious. She begins moving the watches between locations, never keeping them all in one place. Some stay with Rosa, others in a safe deposit box at her bank. A few she keeps close. They're ticking, a constant reminder of what's at stake. Today, she catches a glimpse of Isabel's shadow through the shed's dusty window. Her sister moves with uncharacteristic stealth, testing drawers and probing walls. The sight sends a chill down Elena's spine despite the warm afternoon. Looking for something? Elena asks from the doorway. Isabel whirls around, designer handbag swinging wild. Her face shifts through several expressions before settling on defiant. Just checking on my investment. Your investment? Half of everything in this shed should be mine. Isabel's voice rises slightly. You know that's what Daddy would have wanted. Is it? Elena steps inside, letting the door fall shut behind her. Is that really what you think Papa wanted? For us to fight over his things? Don't. Isabel holds up one manicured hand. Don't pretend you know what he wanted. You weren't even there when he... She stops abruptly, color draining from her face. When he what, Isabel? But her sister is already pushing past her, heels crunching on scattered wood shavings. The door slams hard enough to rattle the windows. Elena stands in the sudden silence, heart pounding. What had Isabel been about to say? What else don't I know? Later that afternoon, Elena discovers another of Manuel's notes tucked inside the Omega's case. This one is different. The paper newer, the handwriting slightly shakier. Mi querida Elena, by the time you read this, you'll have found the watches. You'll be wondering why I chose this way to pass them on. Why the secrecy, the separate messages, the careful hiding. The truth is complicated, as truth often is. These timepieces represent more than their monetary value. They are chapters of our family's story. Some of those chapters are still being written. Isabel came to me last month, desperate for money. She thought I didn't know about her troubles, her debts. She asked me to sell my collection to help her start fresh. When I refused, she threatened to find buyers herself once I was gone. I couldn't let that happen, not because of the watches themselves, but because of what they represent. Each one was chosen with purpose, restored with love, preserved for moments yet to come. They are meant to teach patience, perseverance, the value of time well spent. You understand this, mi hija. You always have. That's why I trust you to handle what comes next. Con todo mi amor, Papa. Elena's hands tremble as she refolds the note. The revelation of Isabel's earlier visit explains so much. Her sister's barely concealed rage at the will reading, her desperate searches of the shed, her bitter accusations of unfairness. What Isabel saw as rejection, Manuel had intended as protection, not of the watches themselves, but of their deeper meaning. The realization settles like lead in Elena's stomach. How can she preserve both the collection's significance and her relationship with her sister? A knock at her apartment door startles her from these thoughts. Elena quickly tucks the watches away before answering. Rosa stands in the hallway holding a familiar wooden box. Your father's recipe box, she explains, stepping inside, though it never held many recipes. Elena accepts the box carefully. Inside, she finds more notes, more stories, a paper trail of Manuel's thoughts and hopes for his daughters. Some date back years, chronicling not just the watch's histories, but the family's journey through time. He knew this day would come, Rosa says softly, settling onto Elena's worn couch. The day when you and Isabel would have to face what divides you. Did you know? About Isabel asking him to sell the watches? Rosa's silence is answer enough. Finally, she sighs. I knew she was in trouble. I tried to help, but she's so proud, so afraid of appearing weak. She meets Elena's eyes steadily, like someone else I know. I'm not. Elena starts to protest, then stops. Isn't she just as guilty of pride, of keeping secrets, of trying to handle everything alone? Your father believed in both of you, Rosa continues. Even when you couldn't believe in each other. These watches, these notes, they're his way of building a bridge. But you and Isabel have to choose to walk across it. Elena sinks into her reading chair, one hand absently rubbing her growing belly. The baby kicks as if in agreement, making her smile despite everything. I don't know how to reach her, Mama. Every time I try, she pushes back harder. Then maybe it's time to stop pushing. Rosa stands, moving to the window where afternoon light paints patterns on the floor. Maybe it's time to simply open the door and wait. The wisdom in her mother's words resonates with Manuel's notes about patience, about careful restoration of broken things. Elena thinks of the Omega Seamaster, how her father spent months bringing it back to life one tiny piece at a time. Can she do the same with Isabel? Find the broken pieces of their relationship and carefully, patiently rebuild? The watches tick in their hiding places, marking time's passage. Each second brings another choice, another chance to honor Manuel's legacy, not just through preserving his collection, but through healing the family he loved. Elena reaches for her phone. I'm going to text Isabel. Ask her to meet me at the shed tomorrow. Her fingers hover over the keypad. No accusations, no demands, just conversation. Rosa's smile holds a hint of Manuel's quiet wisdom. That's a good start, mi amor. That's a very good start. The following day dawns gray and heavy with impending rain. Elena arrives early at Rosa's house for their planned family lunch, her father's Omega Seamaster tucked safely in her purse. The weight of it reminds her of choices yet to be made. Rosa's kitchen smells of simmering sofrito and fresh bread. Isabel's voice drifts from inside, sharp-edged and defensive. I don't see why we need these family meetings. Everything important has already been decided. Elena pauses at the door, hand frozen mid-knock. Through the window, she catches glimpses of her sister pacing, phone pressed to her ear. No, you don't understand, Isabel continues, voice dropping. The deadline was clear, payment in full by end of month or they'll start legal proceedings. I can't. Yes, I know what I promised, but... The call ends abruptly as Elena finally knocks. Isabel's face when she opens the door is a mask of composure, but her hands shake slightly as she tucks her phone away. You're early, Isabel says, the words clipped and cold. I thought we could talk before Mama joins us. There's nothing to talk about. But Elena pushes forward, pulling out the Omega. Papa restored this the summer before you started college. Did you know that? Isabel's eyes fix on the watch, something flickering behind her careful facade. What does it matter now? He sold 3 others to help pay your tuition. Elena sets the watch on the kitchen table between them. It's all in his notes, which pieces he sold, which ones he kept. Every decision made with purpose. Stop. Isabel's voice cracks. Just stop pretending you know everything about him. You weren't there at the end. You didn't see. She breaks off, turning away sharply. Then tell me what I didn't see. Elena keeps her voice gentle, remembering Rosa's advice about open doors. Help me understand. The silence stretches between them, marked by the steady tick of the Omega. Outside, rain begins to fall, drumming against the windows in an uneven rhythm. He was different those last few weeks, Isabel finally says, still facing away, worried about something. He kept going to that shed, spending hours with those watches. Her shoulders tense. I thought if he just sold them, if he could help me fix things one last time. Is that when you asked him about selling the collection? Isabel whirls back, eyes bright with unshed tears. You know about that? He left a note. Elena touches the watch gently. He wasn't rejecting you, Isabel. He was trying to protect something he thought was important. More important than helping his own daughter? The bitterness in Isabel's voice could cut glass. More important than quick fixes that wouldn't solve the real problem. Elena meets her sister's gaze steadily. These watches, they're not just about their monetary value. They're about patience, persistence, the work of restoration. Papa was trying to teach us something. The only thing I'm learning is that he trusted you more than me. Isabel snatches up her designer purse. Keep your precious watches and your precious lessons. I'll figure things out myself. She storms out just as Rosa enters through the back door, arms full of groceries. Their mother takes in the scene, Isabel's retreating form, Elena's tired face, the watch sitting like an accusation on the kitchen table. Hey, Miss Hijas, Rosa sighs, always running in opposite directions. Elena sinks into a chair, suddenly exhausted. The baby shifts restlessly, as if sensing her distress. I'm trying, Mama, but every time I reach out... Keep reaching. Rosa sets down her bags and moves to squeeze Elena's shoulder. Some mechanisms take longer to repair than others. Later that evening, alone in her apartment, Elena spreads Manuel's notes across her desk. She reads each one again, not searching now, but absorbing, really understanding for the first time what her father was trying to build. The watches tick in their various hiding places, their rhythms slightly out of sync but somehow harmonious. Like family members, Elena thinks, each moving at their own pace but part of a greater whole. She places a hand on her belly, feeling the strong kicks of her child. Your grandfather was wiser than we knew, she tells the baby. He understood that some things can't be rushed, that real healing, like real restoration, takes time and patience and faith. Elena looks at the Omega Seamaster, remembering how Manuel had rebuilt it piece by piece, never losing hope in its potential. She thinks of Isabel, of the breaks in their relationship that need mending, of the work still to be done. Her resolve hardens like steel tempering in fire. She will honor Manuel's legacy, not by simply preserving his collection, but by applying its lessons, by being as patient with her sister as their father was with his broken timepieces, by believing in the possibility of restoration, even when others might give up. The rain continues outside, a steady rhythm joining the watch's chorus. Elena begins gathering the notes, organizing them with new purpose. She can't force Isabel to understand any more than she can force a watch to keep perfect time. But she can create the conditions for healing, can keep the door open, can wait with the same quiet persistence Manuel showed in all his restorations. Time, after all, has its own wisdom, and Elena is finally learning to trust its flow. Steam rises from Rosa's coffee cup, curling through shafts of morning light in her small kitchen. Elena watches her mother's weathered hands trace the delicate engravings on one of Manuel's antique watches, following patterns worn smooth by decades of similar gestures. Your father spent hours with these, Rosa says, tilting the watch to catch the light. The gold case gleams dully, its face cracked but still beautiful. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and find his side of the bed empty. He'd be out in that shed working on one piece or another. Elena cradles her own coffee, letting its warmth seep into her palms. The collection of watches spreads across Rosa's kitchen table like a museum display. Each one tells its own story through scratches and wear, repairs and restorations. She pulls out the stack of notes Manuel left behind, his familiar handwriting stark against cream-colored paper. Listen to this, Elena says, selecting one of the letters. The Cartier Tank Watch, 1943. Found at an estate sale in Phoenix. The owner's widow told me it survived the Battle of Anzio. I replaced the crystal and restored the movement, but kept the original case intact. Some scars deserve to be preserved. Her voice catches on the last words. Rosa nods, a slight smile playing at her lips. He always said every watch had a soul, that fixing them wasn't just about making them tick again, it was about honoring the lives they'd witnessed. I never knew, Elena whispers. All those hours in the shed, I thought he was just puttering around with his tools. Why didn't he tell us? Your father was a private man when it came to his passions. Rosa sets down the watch with careful precision. He didn't collect these for show or status. They were his refuge, I suppose you'd say, especially during the hard times. Elena looks up sharply. What hard times? Rosa's eyes grow distant. She traces the rim of her coffee cup with one finger, gathering thoughts like yarn before knitting. The year Isabel started college, the construction company laid off half their workers. Your father included. She pauses, measuring her words. We had 2 mortgages then, Isabel's tuition, your wedding coming up. But we never. Elena stops, memories shifting like puzzle pieces clicking into place. The scholarship Isabel got, her second semester. Wasn't a scholarship. Rosa's voice is gentle. Your father sold 3 of his finest pieces. Never said a word about it to anyone. Just quietly emptied his savings, sold the watches, and made sure his daughter could stay in school. The weight of this revelation settles over Elena like a heavy blanket. She stares at the watches spread before her, seeing them with new eyes. Not just collectibles or investments, but sacrifices. Pieces of her father's heart traded away one by one to keep his family whole. Tears spill onto her cheeks before she realizes she's crying. I never knew, she repeats, the words barely audible. All this time. Rosa reaches across the table, her hand warm and steady on Elena's arm. Manuel believed in you, Mija. He saw your strength, even when you couldn't see it yourself. These watches. She gestures at the collection. They're more than just timepieces. They're his way of showing you that the most precious things in life often go unnoticed until we learn to look closer. Elena wipes her eyes, but fresh tears replace the ones she brushes away. Her father's quiet dignity, his unflagging support, his subtle lessons about value and sacrifice, it all takes on new meaning. She thinks of Isabel's dismissive words at the will reading, her sister's sharp laugh when Elena inherited the shed. Does Isabel know about the watches he sold for her tuition? Rosa shakes her head. Manuel never wanted her to feel indebted. He said children shouldn't have to carry their parents' sacrifices as burdens. The morning light shifts, painting new patterns on the kitchen floor. Outside, a neighbor's wind chimes sing in the breeze, their melody carrying traces of memory, summer evenings on the porch, Manuel's quiet humming as he worked, the steady tick of his pocket watch, marking time's passage. Elena places her hand over her slightly rounded belly, feeling the flutter of movement within. Her child, Manuel's grandchild, will never know him except through stories and inherited objects. The weight of preservation settles on her shoulders, not just of watches and letters, but of lessons and love passed down through generations. Rising from the table, Elena moves to the sink and rinses her coffee cup. The familiar routine helps steady her hands, gives her mind space to process. When she turns back, Rosa is studying her with knowing eyes. "There's something else," her mother says. "Something you haven't found yet." Elena's pulse quickens. "In the shed?" Rosa nods, but offers no further explanation. Instead, she begins carefully wrapping each watch in soft cloth, returning them to their velvet-lined boxes. Her movements are deliberate, almost ritualistic. "Your father always said timing was everything, not just with watches, but with truth as well." The words follow Elena back to the shed that afternoon. Sunlight filters through dusty windows, creating islands of clarity in the dim interior. She moves with new purpose now, seeing the space through her father's eyes. Every shelf, every corner holds potential meaning. The safe stands open in its corner, most of its contents already explored. But Elena remembers Rosa's words, her hint of something still undiscovered. She runs her fingers along the safe's interior, feeling for hidden compartments or overlooked spaces. In the back, behind where the watch boxes had been stacked, her fingers find an envelope she hadn't noticed before. The paper is slightly yellowed with age, but the writing is unmistakably Manuel's. "For my daughters." Elena's hands tremble as she opens it. Inside, she finds a single sheet of paper covered in her father's careful script. The date at the top is from just weeks before his death. "My dearest Elena and Isabel, if you're reading this, it means Elena has found my collection and begun to understand its true value. These watches have been more than just a hobby. They've been my companions through life's storms, silent witnesses to our family's journey." Each piece tells a story of persistence, of broken things made whole again. Like the Omega from 1925, its case dented but its heart still strong. Or the Rolex that survived a house fire, its crystal clouded but its spirit unquenchable. They remind me of you both, different on the outside but carrying the same inherited strength within. Elena, my thoughtful one, you've always seen beneath surfaces to find hidden worth. Isabel, my fierce one, your drive to succeed has pushed our family to grow beyond its boundaries. Together, you possess qualities that complement and complete each other, like the delicate balance wheel and steady mainspring that keep time flowing forward. These watches were never meant to be a source of division. They are a bridge, built piece by piece over years of patient work. Each one represents a lesson, a memory, a hope for the future. They belong to both of you, not as separate inheritances, but as a shared legacy. My greatest regret is that I may not live to see you reconcile your differences, but perhaps these treasured pieces can help you find your way back to each other. Time is precious, my daughters. Don't let it slip away before you realize what truly matters. Find time for each other before it runs out. This is my final wish, worth more than all the watches in the world. With endless love, Papa Sa, the letter trembles in Elena's hands. Dust motes dance in the shafts of sunlight, and somewhere in the distance, a car door slams. But Elena barely registers these details, lost in the echo of her father's words. She sinks onto an old stool, the letter pressed to her chest. The magnitude of Manuel's intentions staggers her. This wasn't just about watches or money or even family heirlooms. It was his last attempt to heal the rift between his daughters, to transform physical inheritance into emotional reconciliation. But Isabel's recent behavior floods back. Her desperate snooping, her barely concealed greed, her dismissal of anything without immediate monetary value. Would she even be capable of understanding the deeper meaning behind Manuel's collection? Or would she see only dollar signs, missing the priceless lessons encoded in each restored timepiece? The walk home feels longer than usual, Manuel's letter burning in her pocket like a coal. In her apartment, Elena sits at her small dining table, spreading the letter before her. She reads it again, then again, each time finding new layers of meaning in her father's carefully chosen words. Her phone buzzes with a text from Isabel, something about needing to discuss the estate taxes. Elena lets it go unanswered. She's not ready yet, not sure how to bridge the gap between Manuel's hopes and the reality of their fractured relationship. For now, she decides the watches in the letter will remain her secret, not out of spite or revenge, but from a deep sense that timing, as Rosa said, is everything. Isabel isn't ready to hear their father's message, not while she's drowning in whatever financial troubles drive her increasingly erratic behavior. Elena tucks the letter away in her bedside drawer next to the ultrasound photo from last week's appointment. Two pieces of future history, waiting to be revealed at the right moment. She places her hand on her growing belly, feeling the slight flutter that's become more noticeable lately. "Your grandfather was a wise man," she whispers to her unborn child. "He knew that sometimes the most valuable inheritances can't be measured in dollars or cents." The evening light fades, painting her walls in shades of amber and gold. Somewhere in the city, church bells toll the hour, their deep tones carrying echoes of Manuel's beloved timepieces. Elena closes her eyes, listening to their steady rhythm, and begins to plan her next steps carefully. The watches will wait in their velvet boxes, keeping their stories safe until the moment is right. Until Isabel is ready to see beyond their monetary worth to the priceless legacy they represent. Until Elena finds the strength to honor Manuel's final wish, bridging the gap between past and future, between sister and sister, between broken and whole. For now, she holds this knowledge close, like a pocket watch ticking steadily against her heart. Time enough for truth, time enough for healing, time enough for love to find its way home. Elena spreads the books across her coffee table, their leather covers gleaming in the afternoon light. Her laptop screen glows with dozens of open tabs, auction records, collector forums, historical archives. The watches from Manuel's safe lie arranged before her on a velvet cloth, each one telling its own story through delicate hands and worn cases. She picks up a chronograph with a weathered brass case, turning it over to examine the serial number. The metal feels cool against her fingertips as she types the digits into a collector's database. Her breath catches when the results load. 1943 Lemania military issue, she reads aloud, voice barely above a whisper. Issued to Allied forces during World War II. The description details how soldiers use these watches to synchronize operations, timing their movements down to the second. She imagines the watch strapped to a young soldier's wrist, his life depending on its precise mechanics. Another watch, smaller and more ornate, bears the hallmarks of a renowned 19th century Swiss watchmaker. Its face is a masterwork of intricate complications, moon phases, perpetual calendar, minute repeater. The auction records make her eyes widen. Similar pieces have sold for more than her annual income. Her phone buzzes with a text from Isabel. "Where are you hiding them?" Elena ignores it, focusing instead on a pocket watch with a scratched crystal. This one bears an inscription to Manuel Morales for 20 years of dedicated service. She remembers her father wearing it to special occasions, the gold chain draped across his vest. Now she understands why he treated it with such reverence. Not for its monetary value, but for what it represented. Time given in service to others. The afternoon slips away as she loses herself in research, piecing together the history behind each timepiece. Every discovery deepens her appreciation for Manuel's collection. He hadn't just accumulated expensive trinkets, he'd preserved pieces of history, each watch carrying its own tale of craftsmanship and human experience. Her hand drifts to her belly, the slight swell more noticeable now. "Your grandfather was quite the collector," she murmurs. "He understood that value isn't just about price tags." The estate tax notice sits unopened on her kitchen counter, its deadline looming. Elena studies the watches, mental calculations running. Selling just 2 or 3 of the less personally significant pieces could cover the taxes and leave enough to start a college fund for her child. The thought brings both relief and guilt. She picks up Manuel's service watch again, remembering his words, "Sometimes we have to let go of things to hold on to what matters most." Had he known she would face this decision? Had he left her the collection, knowing she would understand the difference between its monetary and emotional worth? The guilt eases slightly. This isn't about liquidating his legacy. It's about using it wisely, ensuring its benefits extend to the next generation. She begins sorting the watches into 2 groups, those too precious to part with, and those that could help secure her child's future. A particular watch catches her eye, a lady's piece with delicate mother-of-pearl inlay. She imagines setting it aside for Isabel, not as a peace offering exactly, but as a gesture toward the reconciliation their father had wanted. The thought feels right, even if Isabel's recent behavior makes Elena hesitate. Her phone buzzes again. 3 missed calls from Isabel, another demanding text. Elena sets the phone face down, focusing instead on carefully wrapping each watch. The task requires attention, precision, qualities Manuel always valued. She finds herself adopting his methodical approach, treating each timepiece with the reverence he would have shown. "I'm trying to do right by you, Papa," she whispers, securing the last watch in its velvet pouch. "I hope you'd understand." A knock at her door startles her. Through the peephole, she sees Rosa, looking troubled. "Isabel came by my house again," Rosa says when Elena lets her in. "She's not herself. Mija." The way she was asking about the safe. She trails off, eyes landing on the books and watches spread across the coffee table. "I've been researching them," Elena explains. "Some are quite valuable. I thought maybe if I sold a few." "Your father would approve," Rosa interrupts gently. "He believed in using resources wisely." She picks up one of the books, examining its cover. "But be careful. Isabel, she's not thinking clearly these days." Elena nods, remembering Isabel's increasingly erratic texts. "I'm setting one aside for her, this one." She shows Rosa the mother-of-pearl watch. "But only if she shows she's ready," Rosa finishes. "Yes, that's wise." She squeezes Elena's hand. "You're more like your father than you know." After Rosa leaves, Elena returns to her research with renewed purpose. She creates detailed records of each watch's history and value, noting which ones hold the most personal significance. The mother-of-pearl watch goes into a separate box along with a letter she begins composing to Isabel. "Dear Isabel," she writes, then stops. The words need to be perfect, firm but hopeful, extending an olive branch without enabling further destruction. She sets the letter aside for now. Like the watches themselves, some things shouldn't be rushed. Night falls as Elena continues working, the lamp casting a warm glow over her makeshift research station. Her phone remains silent now, Isabel's messages unanswered. Tomorrow, she'll contact an appraiser, begin the practical steps of turning these heirlooms into security for her child's future. But tonight, surrounded by the quiet ticking of ancient mechanisms, she feels closer to Manuel than she has since his death. A particularly loud tick draws her attention to the service watch. For a moment, she could swear she hears her father's voice. "Time reveals all things. Mija!" Even the path to healing. Elena smiles, resting her hand on her belly. "I hope you're right, Papa," she whispers. "I hope you're right." The screech of tires outside breaks her reverie. Elena moves to the window just in time to see Isabel's SUV pull away from Rosa's house, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Something about the way it accelerates makes her uneasy. Her phone rings. "Rosa." "Mija, you need to come over," her mother's voice trembles. "Now." Elena grabs her keys, already moving. "What happened?" "Isabel?" "She broke in. She was looking for the safe. I caught her in the living room, and..." Rosa's breath hitches. "She's hurt herself. Please come quickly." The drive to Rosa's house takes exactly 7 minutes. Elena counts each second, her father's watches teaching her the weight of time. She finds Rosa's front door unlocked, light spilling onto the porch. Inside, the living room looks ransacked. Drawers hang open, their contents scattered. A broken lamp lies on its side, casting strange shadows. And there on the couch, Isabel sits with her ankle propped on a cushion, tears streaking her makeup. "What were you thinking?" Elena demands, but the anger dies in her throat when she sees Isabel's face. Not defiant now, but broken. Scared. "I need them," Isabel whispers. "The inheritance is gone. All of it. The investments went bad, and the credit card debt." She covers her face with shaking hands. "I didn't know what else to do." Rosa emerges from the kitchen with an ice pack. "She tripped over the lamp trying to run when I caught her," she explains, pressing the ice to Isabel's swollen ankle. "I've never seen her like this." Elena stands in the center of the chaos, feeling the weight of Manuel's final letter in her pocket, the one asking them to heal, to find their way back to being sisters. She takes a deep breath, channeling his patience. "Talk to us," she says quietly. "Tell us everything." And Isabel does. The words pour out between sobs, failed investments, mounting debt, desperate attempts to maintain the illusion of success. The inheritance that was supposed to fix everything, gone in weeks. By the time she finishes, Rosa has sunk into a chair, looking older than Elena has ever seen her. "Your father worried about this," Rosa says softly. Not the money, the distance between you girls, the secrets, the competition. She looks at Isabel. He wanted so much more for you both. I know, Isabel whispers. I know, Mama. Elena's phone buzzes, a reminder she set earlier to take her prenatal vitamins. The simple alert grounds her, reminding her of the future growing inside her, of legacy, and what it really means. She moves to sit beside Isabel, careful not to jostle her injured ankle. Papa left us more than just money or watches, she says. He left us a chance to fix this, to be a family again. She meets her sister's red-rimmed eyes. But we have to want it, both of us. Isabel nods, tears falling fresh. I'm sorry, she manages, for everything. I couldn't stand feeling like the failure again, like I would never measure up to me, Elena asks gently. Isabel, I'm pregnant and alone, living in a tiny apartment, barely making ends meet. I'm hardly the success story you imagine. But Papa trusted you, Isabel whispers. He left you the watches. He knew you would understand their value. Not just their monetary value, Elena corrects. Their meaning, their stories. She takes Isabel's hand, feeling the tremors running through it. And he wanted us to share them, to let them bring us together, not drive us further apart. Rosa moves to sit between them, taking both their hands in hers. For a long moment, they sit in silence, 3 generations of Morales women surrounded by the evidence of their broken relationships. Outside, a clock chimes midnight. We start fresh, Rosa says finally. Together. No more secrets, no more competition. She looks at Isabel. But you have to get help, mi amor, real help. Isabel nods, squeezing their hands. I will. I promise. Elena thinks of the mother-of-pearl watch waiting in its box, of the letter she started to write. Perhaps there's hope for healing after all, though, like the delicate mechanisms of Manuel's watches, it will require patience, precision, and care. Papa used to say that broken things are worth fixing, she says softly, that sometimes the act of repair makes them stronger than they were before. In the quiet that follows, Elena could swear she hears the faint ticking of watches, keeping time, marking moments, measuring the distance between broken and whole. The silence breaks as Isabel shifts, wincing at the pain in her ankle. I should go, she mumbles, trying to stand. You're not driving anywhere, Rosa says firmly. Elena, help me get your sister to the guest room. Together they support Isabel, who limps between them like a wounded bird. Elena notices her designer clothes are wrinkled, her usual polished appearance cracking around the edges. Dark circles shadow her eyes, partially hidden by expensive concealer. I'll get you some aspirin, Rosa says once they've settled Isabel on the bed. She hesitates in the doorway, looking back at her daughters with tired eyes. Please, just talk to each other. Your father, her voice catches. He would be heartbroken to see you like this. When Rosa leaves, the silence grows heavy. Isabel stares at her swollen ankle while Elena stands awkwardly by the window, watching headlights sweep across the neighboring houses. So many nights she'd spent in this room as a child, sharing secrets with her sister. Now they can barely look at each other. $250,000, Isabel says suddenly, her voice hollow. Gone in 6 weeks. She laughs, a bitter sound. Some investment genius I turned out to be. Elena turns from the window. What happened? Crypto crashed, the real estate deal fell through, credit card companies started calling. Isabel presses her palms against her eyes. I thought I could fix it. I always could before. But this time, she chokes on the words. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? That while you were becoming the responsible one, carrying on Papa's legacy, I was gambling away everything? Isabel's voice rises, edged with hysteria. That I've been lying to everyone for years, pretending to be successful while drowning in debt? We're family, Elena says quietly. We could have helped. Family? Isabel's laugh turns into a sob. We haven't been a real family since. She stops, but Elena hears the unspoken words. Since Manuel died, since the will, since everything fell apart. Rosa returns with aspirin and water, her presence temporarily halting the conversation. She fusses over Isabel's ankle, adjusting ice packs and pillows with practiced efficiency. But when she speaks, her voice trembles. Your father worked so hard to give you both a good life, she says, not just with money, but with love, with wisdom. She looks between her daughters, eyes bright with unshed tears. He believed in you both so much, Elena with her art, her gentle heart, Isabel with her ambition, her drive. Mama, please, Isabel starts, but Rosa continues. Every night he would pray for you to find your way back to each other. They're stronger together, he would say. They just don't see it yet. She takes their hands, joining them forcibly. Well, look now. Look at what this distance has done to us all. Elena feels Isabel's fingers trembling in hers. She tries to pull away, but Rosa holds firm. Enough running, their mother says. Enough hiding. Manuel left us a gift, not just watches or money, but a chance to heal. Are you both so stubborn you would waste it? The words hang in the air, heavy with truth. Elena looks at her sister, really looks at her, and sees past the designer clothes and careful makeup to the scared little girl who used to crawl into her bed during thunderstorms, who drew her pictures in grade school, who somewhere along the way got lost in a maze of competition and resentment. The watches, Elena says finally, they're not just valuable pieces, they're stories, lives, memories. She squeezes Isabel's hand. Papa knew that. He wanted us to understand it too. Isabel's tears fall freely now. I've ruined everything, she whispers. The money, the family, his memory. No. Elena's voice is firm. You made mistakes, we both did, but Papa believed in second chances and fixing broken things. She meets her sister's red-rimmed eyes. If you're willing to try, really try, then so am I. Rosa releases their hands, but neither sister lets go. Outside, crickets chirp in the darkness. A clock ticks somewhere in the house, marking each moment of silence with quiet persistence. I need help, Isabel admits finally, the words barely audible. I don't know how to fix any of this, but I need help. Elena nods, feeling something shift between them, subtle as the movement of watch gears, but just as significant. Then we'll figure it out together, one step at a time. The night stretches on, filled with quiet conversations and painful truths. By the time dawn begins to lighten the sky, plans have been made for therapy, for financial counseling, for slow steps toward rebuilding trust. It's not perfect, not yet, but like the intricate mechanisms of Manuel's beloved watches, healing has begun its delicate work. Elena drives home as the sun rises, exhausted but oddly peaceful. In her apartment, she finds the mother-of-pearl watch still waiting in its box. She adds a note to the unfinished letter. When you're ready, this belongs to you. Papa believed in second chances, so do I. The watch ticks softly as she closes the box, each sound a reminder of Manuel's wisdom, of time's power to heal, of the intricate bonds that hold a family together, bonds that, like the finest timepieces, require constant care but are worth every moment spent maintaining them. Elena's fingers trace the edges of her father's letter, following the careful strokes of his handwriting. Morning light filters through her apartment windows, casting long shadows across the kitchen table where she's read these words a dozen times already. Each reading reveals new layers of meaning, new glimpses into Manuel's heart. My dearest Elena, the letter begins. She knows the words by heart now. The greatest inheritance I can leave you isn't measured in dollars or possessions, but in the strength of our family bonds. Your sister needs you now more than ever, though she may not show it. The watches in this collection represent more than their monetary value. They mark the moments that shaped us, the time we spent together and apart. I trust you to understand this, to see beyond the surface as you always have. She sets the letter down, rubbing her temples. The weight of Manuel's expectations settles heavily on her shoulders. Across the room, spread carefully on her desk, lies a portion of the watch collection, pieces selected for their beauty, but not their sentiment. These are the ones she can bear to part with, the ones that might serve as an olive branch to Isabel. Her hand drifts to her growing belly, a gesture that's become automatic these past months. The baby stirs, as if sensing her turmoil. Your grandfather was wise, she murmurs, but wisdom doesn't make choices any easier. Rising from the table, Elena moves to gather the watches. Each one catches the light differently, gold and silver, brass and steel, all telling different stories of time and care. She wraps them carefully in soft cloth, tucking them into a wooden box that still smells faintly of Manuel's tobacco. Her phone buzzes with a text from Isabel. Need to talk. Important. Elena studies the message, noting the lack of their usual sharp-edged formality. Something has shifted in Isabel these past weeks, a crack in her carefully maintained facade. The sister who once wielded words like weapons now sends messages that sound almost uncertain. She picks up a pen, pulling a note card from her desk drawer. The words come slowly, each one considered. Isabel, these watches belong to Papa, part of the collection you've been so curious about. They're yours if you want them, not as a handout, but as a beginning. We need to talk about trust, about rebuilding what we've lost. These pieces are valuable, yes, but their true worth lies in what they represent. Time. Time to heal, to change, to become the sisters Papa always believed we could be. Elena, the note feels inadequate, too formal in some places and too raw in others, but it's honest, and that's what matters now. Elena tucks it into the box alongside the watches, securing the latch with trembling fingers. A knock at her door startles her. Rosa stands in the hallway, holding a paper bag that smells of fresh pan dulce. I thought you might need breakfast, she says, studying Elena's face with knowing eyes. And perhaps some motherly advice? Elena steps back, letting Rosa enter. Her mother moves through the apartment with familiar grace, setting out plates and cups as if she's done it 1,000 times before. In a way, she has, always there when Elena needs her most, even before Elena realizes she needs help. You're going to see Isabel today? Rosa asks, pouring coffee into Elena's favorite mug. Elena nods, sinking into a kitchen chair. I have to try, Mama, for Papa's sake, if nothing else. No, Micha. Rosa's voice is gentle but firm. Do it for your sake and for Isabel's. Your father's legacy isn't about obligation, it's about love, even when love is difficult. She pauses, stirring sugar into her coffee. Especially when it's difficult. What if she hasn't changed? What if this is just another game to her? Rosa's hand still. Then you'll know you tried. That's all any of us can do. She reaches across the table, squeezing Elena's fingers. But I've seen something different in her lately. Something that reminds me of when she was small, before competition and jealousy took root. Elena remembers those days too. Isabel following her around the house, wanting to draw with Elena's special markers, begging to hear just one more bedtime story. When did that admiration curdle into resentment? When did they stop being sisters and become rivals? I'm scared, Mama, Elena admits quietly. Not of Isabel's anger or manipulation. I'm scared of hoping, of believing things can change and being disappointed again. Rosa's eyes, so like Manuel's, fill with understanding. Hope isn't foolish, mi amor. It's brave. Your father knew that. It's why he left you the watches, why he trusted you to bridge this gap. She stands, moving to embrace Elena from behind, her arms warm and secure. You have his strength, Elena, more than you know. Elena leans into her mother's embrace, drawing comfort from her steady presence. Outside, traffic hums past her windows, the city waking to another ordinary day. But in here, in this quiet moment between mother and daughter, something extraordinary is taking shape. Courage, born of love and legacy. Rising from her chair, Elena retrieves the box of watches from her desk. Its weight feels significant in her hands, like a key waiting to unlock a door long sealed shut. Will you come with me? She asks Rosa. Not to intervene, just to be there? Rosa nods, understanding as always. Some burdens are easier to bear when shared, she says simply. Elena gathers her purse and keys, tucking the box carefully under her arm. The morning light catches her father's pocket watch, still sitting on her coffee table. Its face reflects the sun like a blessing, a final encouragement from Manuel himself. Okay, Elena breathes, squaring her shoulders. Let's go see my sister. Rosa's living room feels smaller somehow, its familiar comfort compressed by the weight of anticipation. Elena sits perched on the edge of the sofa, the box of watches on the coffee table before her. Afternoon light streams through gauzy curtains, painting patterns on the hardwood floor. The doorbell rings. Elena's heart jumps, but Rosa squeezes her shoulder before disappearing into the kitchen. I'll give you girls some space, she murmurs. Isabel stands in the doorway, with her designer outfit slightly rumpled, dark circles visible beneath careful makeup. She hesitates before stepping inside, clutching her phone like a shield. Elena. Her voice wavers. I got your message. Sit, Elena says softly, gesturing to the armchair across from her. Please. Isabel perches on the edge of the chair, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. Her eyes fix on the wooden box between them. Those are Papa's watches, some of them. Elena's fingers rest on the box's smooth surface. There's something you need to understand first. She explains about the safe, about Manuel's letters, about the deeper meaning behind his final gift. With each word, Isabel seems to shrink further into herself. her carefully constructed walls crumbling. "Stop," Isabel whispers suddenly, her voice thick. "Just stop." Her hands clench in her lap, knuckles white. "You don't understand. You never had to understand." The words burst from her like water through a breaking dam. "Do you know what it was like? Growing up in your shadow? Elena the responsible one, Elena the artistic one, Elena who could do no wrong." Tears streak Isabel's makeup, but she doesn't seem to notice. "I tried so hard to be different, to stand out, but nothing was ever enough. And then," she chokes on a sob, "then I made mistakes, bad ones, the kind that spiral until you can't see a way out. The inheritance was supposed to fix everything, but it barely made a dent in what I owe." Elena sits very still, letting her sister's pain fill the space between them. In this moment, she sees past the sharp suits and sharper words to the little girl who once followed her everywhere, desperate for attention. "Isabel," she says gently, "why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what? That I failed? That I'm drowning in debt? That I—" Isabel's voice breaks. "That I've been so jealous of you I can barely breathe sometimes?" "Yes." Elena leans forward, holding her sister's gaze. "All of it. We're family, Isa. That means something." "Does it?" Isabel laughs bitterly. "After everything I've done?" Elena opens the box, lifting out the first watch, a delicate gold piece with an engraved case. "Papa wrote that he bought this the day you were born, said it reminded him of you, beautiful, precise, with depths that weren't immediately obvious." Isabel's breath catches. Her fingers twitch, but she doesn't reach for the watch. "I'm not offering these as a solution to your problems," Elena continues carefully. "They're valuable, yes, but their real worth is in what they represent. A chance to start over, to rebuild trust. But it has to be earned, Isa. I need to know you're serious about changing." Silence stretches between them, broken only by the soft ticking of the living room clock. Finally, Isabel nods, the gesture small but decisive. "I'll do whatever it takes," she whispers. "Therapy, financial counseling, whatever you think is right. I can't keep living like this. Neither can I." Elena stands, moving to sit beside her sister. "We lost too much time already, Isa. Let's not waste any more." Isabel's hand finds hers, squeezing tight. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's a beginning. The auction house bustles with quiet energy, collectors murmuring amongst themselves as they examine the catalog. Elena watches from a corner as her father's watches draw increasingly eager bids. Each piece tells its own story. Stories of craftsmanship, of history, of love preserved through time. The final hammer falls. The proceeds exceed her wildest expectations, enough to secure her child's future while honoring Manuel's legacy. As she signs the paperwork, Elena feels a curious lightness in her chest. These watches served their purpose, carrying her father's final message. Now they'll serve new purposes, marking time for new families while ensuring her own family's security. Across town, Isabel sits in her therapist's office, slowly unraveling years of competition and hurt. Her messages to Elena come sporadically but sincerely. Small updates about her progress, questions about the baby, tentative attempts to bridge the gap between them. She's working with a financial advisor now, facing her mistakes with trembling courage. Rosa watches her daughter's halting steps toward reconciliation with quiet joy. Her dining room table becomes neutral ground, a place where awkward silences gradually give way to careful conversation. She serves their favorite childhood dishes, telling stories about Manuel that make them both laugh and cry. Under her gentle guidance, old wounds begin to heal. The decision to move back home happens gradually, then all at once. Elena finds herself spending more evenings in her childhood home than her apartment, drawn by Rosa's warmth and the house's familiar comfort. When Rosa suggests turning Elena's old bedroom into a nursery, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. The walls, once covered in teenage posters, now wear a soft sage green. Elena assembles the crib herself, thinking of Manuel's patient lessons about tools and craftsmanship. His restored pocket watch sits on a shelf above the changing table, its steady ticking a lullaby for future generations. Isabel appears one Saturday morning with paint-stained clothes and determination in her eyes. "I thought you might want help with the nursery," she says, holding up a set of brushes. They work in comfortable silence, years of tension slowly dissolving in shared purpose. Small gifts begin appearing. A handmade mobile from Isabel, Vintage children's books discovered in Manuel's shed, a rocking chair Rosa insists Elena's grandmother would have wanted her to have. Each item adds another layer of love to the space, weaving past and future together. Sunlight streams through the living room windows, warming the October morning. Elena rocks gently in her grandmother's chair, cradling her newborn daughter. Manuelita yawns, tiny fingers curling against her blanket, completely unaware of the profound effect she's having on everyone around her. Rosa hovers nearby, unable to resist straightening the already neat stack of baby clothes. Isabel perches on the sofa, watching her niece with wondering eyes. The restored pocket watch ticks softly from its place of honor on the mantel, marking peaceful moments instead of missed opportunities. "She has Papa's eyes," Isabel says softly, reaching out to touch Manuelita's tiny hand. Elena smiles, feeling the weight of legacy and love settle into place. "She has his heart too," she says, "just like all of us." The morning unfolds gently around them, filled with the quiet sounds of family finding its way home. Outside, the world spins on. But in here, in this moment, time holds its breath, watching, waiting, blessing this new beginning with every precious tick and tock. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.